everyone, Vanessa here from Creative Recruiters, and I have an extra special guest joining me today, and we are going to talk about strategy, because for me strategy is a huge encompassing area that gets very confusing both for clients and for candidates. So before I go straight into it, I'd like to introduce Richard Monturo.
Hi, Vanessa.
Hi.
Nice to be here in Australia with you.
Yeah, thanks for flying all the way just to do a little lunch with Vanessa today. Richard and I used to work together in Amsterdam, New York and Dubai, but I'll let Richard introduce himself a little bit further, but we have worked together before, so we're not total strangers.
Yeah, no, not at all. We met maybe about 12, 13 years ago when in Amsterdam at Strawberry Frog. Prior to that, I was head of planning at Shy Day in Los Angeles, and then worked at TBWA Worldwide on a lot of international businesses.
And the disruption business.
Exactly. I helped set up a lot of the disruption framework at the agency. After TBWA and Strawberry Frog, where we worked together, I went client side, and I was head of global marketing at Volvo Cars for about 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
And then after I left that, I have set up my own consultancy now, where I actually work with clients on everything in strategy, ranging from corporate strategy all the way down to digital and social media.
Which we're going to touch on. As I said, it's encompassing and it's huge. So it's great to have Richard here because he does have that perspective from client side and also agency side. So let's get into the first big question. There are so many different types of strategy. Just give us a little bit of a rundown of the types of strategy that there are when we say strategists or strategy.
Well, particularly in the creative professions and in the marketing professions, it is almost like peeling the layers of an onion back, because you've got obviously overall corporate and business strategy, which is really the realm of management consultants like McKinsey and Bain and Boston Consulting, who are really determining the means to the end for the entire client company to be successful. But then underneath that, you've got then the wide wingspan of marketing strategy, which includes your actions in the market in addition to the communications levers that you're using to achieve a desired end. And then on the comms side, you have traditional advertising strategy, which really boils down to creative and media strategy. And then, of course, digital strategy and social strategy. What's interesting about where those two worlds have sort of bifurcated in the last couple of years is that the advertising and creative traditional realm was very largely attitudinally driven, whereas the digital and social one is all very much behaviorally driven. So I get very excited in seeing how you make the attitudinal and the behavioral line up with one another. So I think there's really good things that people can learn from all sides of the spectrum.
Yeah. And since we are predominantly in the Australian market, you also think that Australian strategists are actually quite cool. So give us your background on why Australians make good strategists.
Well, once upon a time when I was coming up in planning in America, account planning itself was very much a British phenomenon. However, a lot of the Brits had very much a cultural and qualitative background, whereas a lot of Americans were sort of old school FMCG researchers who used a lot of quant and a lot of segmentation. And it wasn't that one didn't do the other, it seemed they were leaning one way or the other. But then when I started working with a lot of Australians, particularly Australians who floated around the world kind of like I have, they seem to have that right balance of American marketing rigor with British creativity and consumer insight. Particularly, I think Aussies travel really well.
Exactly, that's the thing.
And so the fish out of water thing is like when you're a planner in Thailand or Hong Kong or even North America, I think you have greater powers of observation when you're looking at people outside your own frame of reference sometimes than if you're just looking at people very close to home. So that's great, and I like it that you're a big fan of Australian strategists. I think that's fantastic. And let's talk about me as a recruiter. When I'm recruiting for a strategist, I get a lot of
social media strategists that think they can be a senior strategist. So let's talk about the different types of level of strategists, because everybody says they're a strategist.
Well, to be fair, social media is very, very exciting right now, and there is a lot to be done strategically in the area
that is
of
true.
social media.
That is true.
But I think you have to make sure that you make the distinction between social media tactics versus strategy, which strategy is really thinking, why am I here on this platform? What am I actually trying to accomplish from a marketing and a business end? And how am I going to basically plan this in context with everything else that I'm doing in the marketing mix? So if all you're really doing is influencer marketing for Instagram likes, how you ladder that up to the rest of the marketing plan is very, very important. So I wouldn't rule it out entirely, but what I would say is I think everybody deserves a little bit of cross-training. So if you're spending a lot of time doing Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, spend a little bit of time in traditional comms planning, media planning, and marketing planning. But at the same time, those of us who've come up in the traditional advertising world, there's plenty of interesting things going on in this area. And one thing I tell my clients is think digital social first and then look back at your traditional levers in terms of how to amplify and accelerate things a little bit more.
Yeah, I don't think they should be set separately. I mean, they shouldn't be separate. It should be. We talked about that off camera before about the whole communication plans and running it from the top down. And if you are going to start with social media strategy, then make sure it flows through to the rest of the communications and the rest of the brand strategies.
Yeah, I mean, to use an athletic analogy, it is very much like a decathlon. You've got to be really good at a lot of different events nowadays to be a world-class strategist versus specialists who absolutely know how to crush Snapchat. There's value in both in the world, but if you, from your career perspective, I think it helps to laterally move across different specialties so you get more well-rounded.
And then also you have had the experience on both the client side and agency side. What would you say would be the big difference there? Are there big differences between agency and client side?
Absolutely. The hugest difference being the requirement for business accountability on the client side and your need to convince people who don't have a marketing background why you want to take the courses of action that you're going to take. So very often the more challenging but also rewarding conversations are when you're talking to your finance director or your procurement director about why you want money to spend on this thing.
Right,
And so your ability to do the walk of, oh, it's just good for the brand sounds really good for those of us in the marketing
department.
And we say brand. When finance directors hear brand, they see money.
And no ROI.
And so you've got to make sure that you know how to be fluent on the soft creative side of things as you're briefing your agencies and getting them to perform and do great work. But at the same time, you have to be business accountable. But that said, on the agency side, the thing that I always found fun and rewarding is incubating a brilliant idea. So that's the reward and the pleasure you get on that side of the fence.
Incubating a great idea and actually seeing it come to fruition as well is amazing.
Yeah.
And working with amazing creative teams to do that, which is what you did with Volvo and actually a lot of other car clients, which we can't mention on camera right now. But and little beer clients from around the world. Which was fun. So I really appreciate you coming here today, and we could talk for hours, and hopefully one day we will. We'll ask Richard back to Australia, and we'll have a panel talk. We've got lots of things organised, but I really appreciate you being here today and spending the time with us.
My pleasure.
If you're looking for strategists, and we know that's a very broad term now, in Australia, then please contact me. And if you would like to use Richard as a freelancer or a contractor, you can also contact me as well. So thank you so much for coming today, Richard. I really appreciate it.
A pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks for listening, everybody, and I hope you have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.